Thank you again, Baruch, and thank you to the GSI team for inviting us to participate in today's webinar. It's always a pleasure. You guys are a great partnership, and it's always an honor again to kind of present to your community. So again, a little bit of background about us and the session. Again, the idea of today is really to hopefully, if you're looking at moving forward as an organization in becoming more data-driven and looking at new technologies out there that like PowerBI, Tableau, those types of things. How do you get started there? What are the considerations? We're going to definitely showcase some of the things that we do as a company, what we deliver with what we call our QuickLaunch, but also we're going to focus on some of the things that you can do just to get started on today with what you have sitting on your desktop in front of you, and we'll show you that. But in essence, a little background about Preferred Strategies. I'm the founder of the company, but as an organization, we've been dedicated to BI for 17 years now, right? And really, our mission as an organization is to partner with companies who think like we do, that value data as a corporate critical asset, and they're looking to transform into more data-driven organizations because they believe it's critical to their success in the future and being competitive. And really, this process is not a plug-and-play process no matter what. Right, there is no software that you can plug and play that's going to answer all questions and deliver everything right out of the gate. So this process is a journey, and so that's really what we're interested in is finding companies who, again, think like we do, but also are looking for a partner on this journey to work with. And one of the things that we really consider ourselves is really like the office next door. We have a lot of customers that, they hit a snag and, they send us an email, give us a call, and in a matter of minutes, we're sharing a desktop and helping them through, the issues. We have some customers so project heavy that they say, hey, we need all this stuff done. We need it yesterday. Can you guys do it? And we can kind of provide that. But every customer is a little unique on what they need from a help standpoint and consulting standpoint. And so whatever's a win for the customer is a win for us. But we do have this product called QuickLaunch. We spent thousands of hours building it. We'll kind of showcase some of that. I think that'll make more sense as we go through the demonstration today. We still provide services and really help our customers with coming up with the right strategy to move forward with. So, where are you at in this journey? And I think this is one of the things that, we look at, sometimes with the culture, especially nowadays, that companies, especially the new blood coming into companies, aren't really satisfied with the status quo of getting information out of really any system, but primarily even like a JD Edwards, where most companies today are still going in, exporting data to Excel, manually working with data in a spreadsheet, presenting that, crossing their fingers, hoping they didn't mess anything up in the process. But really, the new culture is saying, look, I don't want to do that. Now, I've got all these cool data visualization tools. We've got much more machine learning. There's more technology that's growing so fast. That's what we want. And so sometimes it's people in the business that bring that to leadership and say, hey, we need to do something better or different than what we're doing. Sometimes it's leadership that has some exposure to this and says, you know what, we're changing our drive as a business to become more data driven, and they then bring it back to the culture in the business. And so regardless of that, where we get engaged with customers is hopefully they've already had something already in this discussion and internal kind of assessment of where they're at and where they want to go, where they want to be in the future when it comes to their analytics strategy. But really, that's kind of where we don't typically get involved, where we're trying to get. There's tons of articles out there. You can do Google to your heart's desire to find the value of analytics and becoming more data driven, what that'll do for your organization. But assuming that's what you believe, really where we come in is helping then define what is the right technology considerations, what is the developing the layers, the data models, the data sets that are going to be used to drive the different user communities within your organization, and then delivering results around that, right? So this doesn't mean a customer does A and we do B. It's more, this is a partnership, but we work collaboratively. We have certain methodologies and standardizations and recommendations we bring to the table. There's this, they brought up here as an example, CRISP is a data mining methodology that just seems to align with kind of how we approach projects and implementations with customers. So in a nutshell, again, it is a journey. If you're now starting with the technology, here's a couple examples just from 2019. On the left, we've got Gartner. So Gartner comes out with a Magic Quadrant, and this Leaders Quadrant is really where you want to be, as far up in the upper right-hand corner of this. You can see right now there's currently Microsoft, Tableau, Qlik, and ThoughtSpot that are in the Leaders Quadrant. All the other probably 15 so vendors on this are there. But really, for a lot of these companies, the fact that they're even on the Magic Quadrant is a huge thumbs up to them. And so we're going to show a little bit of these. We're going to focus our session today primarily around Microsoft, but there are other technologies that are on this list that you either use or want to use. There's a good chance something that we do can help accelerate that experience for you. And on the right, you can see here, the Forrester Wave, Forrester Research, has Microsoft here, TIBCO, Salesforce, Oracle, and Tableau kind of in their top. But either way, Microsoft's kind of sitting in pole position here, and we'll kind of explain why as we go. I'm going to switch gears for just a moment. And here's an example. So one of the things that we've done is we've kind of gone in here and just plotted, this Magic Quadrant over the years, right? And so one of the things, if I go back to 2015, you'll notice it looks different than it does today, right? So and just some of the history around BI and analytics, and definitely how Microsoft, how Gartner has evaluated the market. So 2015 and prior, so 2010 and 2015, actually all the way back well before 2010, Gartner had looked at BI, and now they're kind of coining that traditional BI. So the legacy tools like Oracle Business Intelligence and Cognos and Business Objects, now by SAP, MicroStrategy. These were kind of traditional BI tools. They were very IT centric. So IT had to basically build all the data warehouses, build all the reports, build the semantic layers. Changes need to be made. It came back to IT. So it was this really IT, required process, very heavily reliance on IT. And then from 2015 to 2016, you'll notice that a lot of those kind of vendors went away. And actually, I think this might be the only year that, I don't know if Oracle's on it in 2016. But in essence, Gartner said from 2015 to 2016, we're now only evaluating applications for analytics that are business user driven. So they're calling that modern BI. And so modern BI would be something where, again, without necessarily having a ton of reliance on IT to get something, a business user can start making decisions on their own. And we're going to show you how you can do that today. That does not mean that there's no IT, and does not mean that this is an IT-enabled process. Once you want to start coming up with a framework and a consistency and governance, that's where it's a team effort between the business and IT, and we're going to kind of show you how you accelerate that. But then we can see here 2016, 2017, 2018, and 2019. So this is actually using, we built this visual and this report just with Power BI as an example. But if we look at here Microsoft, and even let's say Tableau, the top two in the space, and we just play that, you can kind of see year by year, it'll kind of play that on the axis. So it's interesting, but really, we'll talk a little bit about Power BI and how quickly you can kind of get that started. But really, a lot of things when it comes to visualization, a lot of these tools could support, right? So there's reasons why Microsoft is sitting in the pole position. I think one of them is they basically said it's free, right, to some use, right? On the desktop, if you want to use the build out reports and dashboards on your desktop, you can go out to PowerBI.com and download that for free. A lot of the other tools, you're still paying in some cases hundreds, if not thousands of dollars to do something equivalent. If you want to collaborate and share in the cloud, Microsoft says, you can, for $10 per user per month, you can go ahead and do that and still connect to all your data wherever it's at. But anyways, this is kind of, Gartner, and let me go back here. So so we're gonna focus on Power BI throughout the hands-on part of the session. But now, what are some of these considerations around the data, right? JD Edwards is not set up in a format that is readily available for analytics, right? The data isn't stored in a way that's intuitive to most people. You get your table names, FO101 for the address, the field names, MCMCU for the business unit. The dates are in a Julian format, right? But you really want those in a Gregorian format to be able to leverage them. The decimals, so a lot of the amounts and units are stored without decimal precision. If you're on different calendars, maybe you've got 3 different companies in JD Edwards all on a different fiscal date pattern, right? Some are 445 starting in April, and others are normal, so that their fiscal year begins in August, right? And then there's some that are standard. So understanding how to be able to calculate something like year to date on a calendar is something that might seem easy, but it's not. You've got the different, user-defined codes, and every client's unique in how they set up their category code. So these are just some complexities that every customer has to figure out how to deal with if you want to use market-leading BI and analytics like modern BI on top of JD Edwards. There's a suite of reporting applications and tools that people have built for JD Edwards specifically, but none of those are on the market leading list that you just saw according to Gartner and things of that nature. So these are the challenges. What we've done is we've got a few different approaches. So in the traditional BI sense, pretty much almost every organization started BI with this idea that we had to build a data warehouse. And we still get people that reach out to us today saying, hey, I need a data warehouse, right? So just show me your data warehouse. And the reality is 50% of our new customers actually go with our Direct Connect solution, right? So we've built out an ability to layer a suite of database views right on your transaction schema of JD Edwards, either on an iSeries, on an Oracle box, or SQL Server, that do the translations of all the data into a much more business-ready format, okay? Our operational data store, we actually create a mirrored copy. So some customers say, hey, I want a really lightweight solution, but I don't want to go directly against JD Edwards. So in that case, we just mirror the data. So we're either pulling from the logs or journals off the source system, trickling that data over to another repository, typically in SQL Server, but it could be in whatever, the 3 database formats that you want. Or maybe you already have another copy of the data that you might use for other purposes, and you say, hey, can you just map it to that? And absolutely we can. So we put our views against that. We do have a star schema data warehouse, follows all the best practices around data warehousing, and we can get into that kind of discussion on another day. But either way, we find that 50% of our customers go Direct Connect, 25% go with an ODS, and 25% go with a data warehouse. And we'll speak to, after we get through the hands-on portion of the demo, why some of those considerations around the 3. One of the things that we look at, and if you kind of look at those options, and some of the stuff, again, we have these things packaged, but these are some of the same considerations that you will have to determine what's the right fit for your organization. But we really consider those, how we're going to get at the data as more just data preparation, right? So data connectivity, data preparation, how we need to massage that data to make it usable and get it for that format that BI can then manage. But the middle here is this data model. And I want to focus on this for a minute. At the JD Edwards in Focus conference we were at, last month, we had a couple presentations at the conference, and we had, I think, 3 different customers come up to us afterwards and say, customers of ours that are QuickLaunch customers, and they said, you guys totally undersell the value of the data model. What that does and what that delivers to our organization is a huge value, right? And so that's what we're going to show you today. But what the data model does, it's where you get your governance, and it's where we can simplify the model for people. So if you want to build an open PO report, you don't have to start a report by thinking, oh, what are the tables I need from JD Edwards around purchasing, and where do I go to get the supplier, and where do we go to get the branch, or where do we go to get the item or the item branch? And so it doesn't really start with, okay, I've got to go find the data, translate it, and then join the data. That's already done. So you say, oh, grab purchasing. Oh, all the fields are there. Just drag them right into the canvas. and we'll show you what that looks like. But also security. So you might want to, a lot of these modern BI tools, they're all agnostic to data. You can pull data from anywhere, but it doesn't know JD Edwards out of the box. It doesn't know how you might want to enforce your company or business unit security. So that can be built in, and we actually provide that as an option within our model. But you're going to build out measures and KPIs. And this is where you might define as an organization something like gross profit. And gross profit has certain criteria around it that you as an organization have defined. And so everybody that, regardless of what tool they're building their reports in, whether or not it's Power BI or Excel, reporting services, Tableau, right? They're going to grab something that says gross profit, and it's going to mean the same thing. And this is how you get around those awkward meetings with spreadsheets of gross profit that have brought to the table from 4 different people, and they're all different. So this is how you get that governance, and that's critical. We also build things in like the financial account hierarchy, so you can build your P&Ls and balance sheets. So this data model is really we feel like gets you this furthest down the path of success. And then we actually have some sample reports that will showcase a few of those as we go here. So let me go ahead and dive right into the live demonstration. We want to focus on things you can do today without QuickLaunch, just to kind of start dabbling with these type of modern BI tools. But we want to start real quick by just showcasing a little bit of what the experience is like when you already have something built out, and because there's no way within 20 minutes we're going to be able to build out a bunch of completed content. And then we'll basically show you, okay, how you can even connect something like Power BI to some spreadsheet data, and then how it's like differently if you then connect it to a real, full-fledged tabular model, and so on. So let me go in, and I'm going to all right, so we'll come back to this in a moment. If you want to download the desktop, we can sign up for free. But by default, we're going to start by just signing in. Okay. So when I sign in, let's say I'm logged in now as a CFO, and typically you'll authenticate with Power BI with your Active Directory credentials. What we're doing right now is we're connecting to PowerBI.com. So this is just, if I have an internet connection, I'm on a browser, I can go to PowerBI.com and start viewing my reports and dashboards and collaborating with that. You'll see as I'm clicking around, things can be changing interactively on the screen. The data model that's driving what you're going to see is actually sitting in California, and I'm just connected to the cloud. So there's this concept of a gateway back to your data. And so, these queries are getting passed, lightning fast, seamlessly back and forth through this gateway. And so Microsoft's done a great job of making this readily available. So even if I were catching a flight, I'm at the airport, and I have Power BI on my mobile device sitting there waiting for my flight, I can be analyzing and visualizing data there on my phone. It's doing the same thing, right, through this gateway connecting back. So this is an example of some financial ratio KPIs. And, for instance, let's say we're looking at tracking current ratio, AR turns, inventory turns, days payables, days receivables, and so on. You can pin these elements to a dashboard. If you're better than a target, you can kind of be showing as green. If I'm worse, I'm red. We can drill down on that. In this case, it's going to take us down to maybe an underlying sample Power BI report where we've got, maybe I can see that trended over time. In this case, this is one of our samples around some of the KPIs. We've got the numerator and denominator shown separately. Everything you see in demonstration today is all fully customizable, right? We can edit this report. You can change charts, change elements that you want. You determine what your path is to analyze the outliers and how you want the users to be able to drill through and drill down. If I go back to the glossary here for a second, maybe I want to real quickly see how I'm doing on days receivables. And here at a glance, I can see that I'm currently running at 42.1 days, which is better than my target, but still up from before. So this is real. Maybe the CFO is doing this on a monthly or quarterly basis. And this is all pulling from our data model. So this is not something that somebody in finance is going and spending tons of time building out from scratch in Excel. So if I go down here to real quickly just get another example, at each of these, what are called workspaces. So this is how you can organize your content. So you might have different things by, maybe you've got, finance, or you've got executive folder. Maybe you've got by divisions or different companies. So however you want to organize your content, just like you might do it on your network, you can do that with these workspaces. And at each workspace, you can put dashboards, you can pin reports, or, they say reports. You can publish workbooks, data sets. You can go in and certify certain data sets, so that way people know, hey, this is a governed data set that's been validated to the all company requirements. So, if you pull reports from that, then you're guaranteed to get answers, where other things might just still be a work in process. But anyways, if I start here from a dashboard, just like we did a minute ago on the KPIs, the dashboard is where you could pin different visuals and elements from a variety of different reports, and then you could drill down from that dashboard into the underlying report. Because I don't want to belabor this too much, because I want to get into some other things, but the idea here is that we're showing that you can, now not every customer has mobile and televisions and appliances, but we like to show an experience of, okay, maybe you've got a few different product lines or different brands you want to see visually, just a different way of looking at thinking about your data. So what we've done is we said, okay, let's look at our sales. Mobile, we've got month to date. This would be sales versus prior year, gross profit, percent. Flip it to quarter to date, right? On the fly, it's going to recalculate quarter to date or year to date. Instead of period 8, let's calculate for period 9, right? So now it's just on the fly. Every time I click on something here, it's passing, again, a query through this gateway to California, our data center, and back. Okay, so I can see here my sales are up in mobile, and televisions, I'm actually down in appliances. We can drill down on that and take us down to maybe seeing these, refrigerators. I'm actually up. Washers, I'm slightly down. We can drill down on that. So conceptually, you could actually go through and get down just by drilling through things. And then, we'll just show you a couple different things you can do with Power BI, and then we'll basically build something from scratch here in just a moment. But in this case, I'm looking at washers, and I've got maybe my, central. I'm slightly behind prior year. Let's go ahead and right-click on that. I can drill down. All right, so in this case, we're going to drill down. It looks like, actually, when I drill down to the sales rep, Robert O'Neill is better than last year, but Jason Lee is further behind. If we drill down on Jason Lee, now we can get down to maybe his customers where he's behind. We can even drill down and say, okay, any of these, we can drill through to the sales details. Because our model is bringing back all open and closed orders from the 4211, 42119, we can kind of get all that granular detail. So if you think about having all of those inquiry screens that you use every day, like in JD Edwards, that's the type of content that you now have ready available to slice and dice in a different way if you have a good data model set up. So if we go back here to maybe another tab, let's say like this product sales. So for instance, you might have here, maybe by product group, product subgroup. If I look at appliances, I can select that. It'll filter down the chart to the right. We've got some tool tips. So you mouse over something, it gives you not just one value in the visual, but maybe all the other elements that we care about. Maybe you roll up everything and consolidate to cases, right? So we have the ability to go ahead and bring in the same kind of information based on something like that. Sometimes people might look at this and say, okay, I want to show the data. So instead of just seeing this visually, I can just show data. It'll dump in a data table, back to the report. We can also take any one of these visuals, export data to, let's say, Excel if we needed to. But maybe I want to analyze my data by geography. We've now introduced some other things, concepts called slicers. So one of the things that's really neat about a lot of these modern BI tools is these are not like a traditional report where you've run a report, it runs for 20 minutes behind the scenes, comes back with the results, and now it's like 80 pages of data in tables, right? So how are you going to analyze 80 pages of data? And these, just to the nature of how it works, it's like a one-page view that you can then slice and dice the data very quickly and filter it. What might have been a grouping in a report is now maybe a slicer. So if we wanted to look at maybe just central data, right, I can look at central data. Well, I want to look at just maybe computing data within central. And actually, I want to look at computing across the board. Or what about just for Jason Lee, right? So this is kind of where, by just going in and selecting these different slicers, it's going to give you a filter back of that data. Leaving Jason Lee selected there, we can go look at our sales trends. hear how his maybe year-to-date sales trend is. If I flip it back to month-to-date, we can kind of see month by month how he's doing in sales, gross profit, maybe margin percent. If I go and unselect Jason Lee, it'll show me this month-by-month sales across all sales reps combined, and all these filter down. We can also take those key metrics, and these are interesting because what's nice about some of these KPIs is because of the color coding of how if you've got goals and you're either red, yellow, or green, right, this it tells me a story. You know, right here I can see my gross profit year to date is worse than my target, but my sales are still up, right? But year to date I'm not doing so well in gross profit, but I am still fine for this quarter and month to date, right? If we want to look at maybe just East, right, I can select East. I can say, well, in East I'm actually worse off this month, but I'm still good for the quarter date and year to date. So it's just a nice, quick, and easy way for people to be able to find some of these little outliers that might require their attention. Here we've got, so just a year to date. These are waterfall charts, and they're great for analyzing variances. And customers are really loving what they can do with these visually because they point out exactly, like for instance, this is looking at our sales variance year over year by sales rep, right? So that I can see if I'm green, these are the reps doing better. By red, these are the reps that have a negative variance. So if we want to look at Robert O'Neill, I can click on Robert O'Neill, drill down to his customers. These are his customers doing better, his customers doing worse, and so on. If we go and look at maybe, you know, sales rep, right, we can go and pick on and go ahead and play this axis, and this will actually show us maybe here's how we can see month by month the sales for our different sales reps and how they're kind of comparing against each other. If I wanted to then look at, okay, how are we doing for Paul Smith compared to Andrew Short, right? So we can kind of see those side by side. And then we still have the ability to go in and look at data just as a kind of a cross tab. So the idea is that you'll have reports that you build that will be kind of for a lot of consumers. In this case, it's a sales report. Maybe it's for sales reps, maybe sales managers, maybe the VP of sales, maybe the CFO. They'll just kind of click through something that's already there. They can still interact with it and drill down and drill through. But you'll have other people that might want to author and make changes to reports. So in this case, I'll choose Edit. We'll go back here to maybe another tab. And then as a user, we can go in here. Before I make a change, we could just make a change on this tab. So almost think of it like a spreadsheet. You've got all these different tables or these different tabs of yours, and I can duplicate one. So I duplicate a page, right? So I'm going to make a change to this page instead of changing the original one. I can select a chart. We can turn that into maybe a donut or an area map or a bar chart, right? So we can go in here and look at maybe our item branch and look at our, maybe product group instead, or, right? So I bring that above. We can go here to maybe our customer and look at maybe looking at that by channel before product group. Right, so just on the fly, or better yet, if I drill down from my channel, I can drill down to the product group, or vice versa. We can throw that product group above and drill down to the channel. So just by clicking around, the users can kind of get a different flavor of the data. We can also do very quickly. I just want to show one last thing here, and then we're going to get into the hands-on in a second. So if I want to, let's say, look at my year-to-date sales year over year by product group, right? So we can go down here to our sales model. You'll notice that in the data set, we've got all these pre-canned fields like sales amount. When we mouse over these, you'll see them pop up with, we actually provide that lineage back. This is actually a blend of the 4211 and 42119. We also do things like gross profit that doesn't exist actually as a field in JD Edwards, but you need to calculate something like that. And I go up here to maybe looking at things like even the table. So we provide this lineage and the documentation so people that are not sure where this data might be coming from, can actually go ahead and see that if they need to determine what their underlying fields are. Let's go back and look at maybe sales amount year to date. I'm just going to drag that in the canvas, and I'm going to compare that year to date compared to prior year to date. A couple clicks, go up to our item branch, and now we can go ahead and look at maybe our product group. So within a few clicks, we have that. Now, this is year to date. How are we going to drive year to date? This is where you want to build out a nice, robust calendar that pulls from your fiscal date patterns in JD Edwards and allows you to then calculate year to date based on that. So if we go in here and turn that into a slicer, by the user then picking a specific year and period, it's going to recalculate what that is on the fly. Okay. So we've got this by product group. Well, let's say that we want next to that maybe, donut chart, And I'm going to just make this a little bigger. And let's say this guy, we want this to be maybe our customer. Let's go down and grab maybe our sales rep. So if we bring in our sales rep to that, and within the sales rep, I want to look at maybe our year-to-date sales as well. Okay, so we'll look at our sales year-to-date. Just drag them into the canvas. We'll kind of showcase that. And when I drill down on this, maybe I'll drill all the way down to maybe their product. Okay, so if I go down to the item branch and bring in maybe our product, and just drag that right below our sales rep now. And we could also go here, there's this whole format brush, so we can format the data, and instead of looking at, just a category on labels, we want all labels, so we can see some dollars as well as percentages, okay? And if I drill down, let's say Robert or Neil again, we can drill down and see the breakdown. Now, one of the things that's kind of unique about Power BI is that there's this whole monthly updates, right? So it's unlike a lot of the BI tools that might update software once a year. With this, it might be every few minutes, or sorry, every month, you'll get a whole list of several updates to it. So if I go out here, we can go to a gallery, import from a marketplace, right, and see all these different, custom visualizations. It's like your iPhone. People are building out all these custom visualizations for you. And in this case, we've already downloaded one called the narratives. So the narratives allows us to do is basically it'll write a narrative for us. So we can actually look at that maybe as a bulleted list. It's pretty cool. So now it's going to go through, and I can even tailor the narrative. So, instead of saying entity, this is actually our sales rep. Sales reps. Go down to our product and look at maybe this is our product. All right, we look at maybe our characterization. Sales amount is money. Well, that's good. Want to aggregate across. So just a few clicks, we can start getting, okay, Robert and Neil, total sales, 811,000 across 32 products, representing 21% of the total sales across all 8 sales reps. What if we want to look at just appliances? So look at appliances. Now we can kind of see it's going to rewrite up this narrative for appliances. Jason Lee, 268 across all 10 products, representing 23% of the total sales across all. So this is kind of one of those things where it's just an ability to use some of the functionality that it's going to mine the data for you and come up with some results. So we've been kind of showcasing a lot just to give you an idea of some things you can do right over the web. But let's now go back, and if we were starting from scratch. So like I mentioned, when you logged in, we went into sign in, but we could have gone sign up for free and just download the desktop. So this is a Power BI desktop. It's free. One of the things that we're going to do is I'm going to showcase, here's, let's say you have a spreadsheet. And this is a great way to take some data from an existing report and dump it out to Excel just to be able to understand how it's like to visualize this data quickly and easily with something like Power BI. Right? This is a great tool and a great process for prototyping, not a process I'd ever recommend for production. Right? This is great to get, and it's part of it is, does it make sense to visualize this data differently? So you might determine by getting some source of data, pulling into a spreadsheet, loading into Power BI to determine, there's no real value to us as an organization having this readily available every day, where other times you say, oh my gosh, if we had this at our fingertips, it would be amazing. So here's an example. We kind of have a couple samples of data. In this case, this is what the data might look like in JD Edwards with the aliases. Here, maybe you've gone in and cleaned that up a little bit with some category code descriptions and some better names, calculations, and that. Maybe you've got a report that's already dumping out this data set that you're already pulling into a pivot table in Excel, and how we're going to work with that. So if we would take Power BI Desktop, download it, and then you load it up and go get data, and there's all these different sources you can get from data. If I go more here, you'll see there's all kinds of different data sources online. So whether or not you're running Salesforce, or you're running Dynamics, or you've got Google Analytics, and there's connectors coming out every day for things like this. But if you need to connect directly at JD Edwards data, we'll show you that in a moment. But right now, I'm going to go back, get data, and just choose Excel. Okay. So you navigate to that page, or sorry, that Excel spreadsheet, and then it's going to go ahead and pull that up and say, okay, I've got a couple different tabs there. We got one with aliases, one without. I'll go pick the one without and load that. So now you've got this data being pulled in and consumed into Power BI, and it's now going to compress all that data in memory. So it'll basically be much smaller in size and how big your spreadsheet might be. Unfortunately, if you're going to pull from a Excel spreadsheet, you might be limited on row counts. You might have to do something like, either CSVs, which is another source option. But now on the right, we've got, some different categories. They've got the same similar things you saw channel and product and sales rep. We've got sales amount, gross profit. Now, in our model, we had lots of things like month to date, quarter to date, year to date, right? Those don't exist here. I'd have to build that logic of how we can compare this month versus last month, or this year to date versus prior year. That's things that you could build here right within the model. But real quickly, if I want to just look at maybe here's my gross profit. How's our gross profit trending by a year period, right? I can go ahead and see that. Maybe I want to look at getting rid of that and just do this the field, right? So we can kind of see something trended there. Or we want to bring in maybe our customer name. Let's bring in our sales amount, right? I want to see that as a list. Maybe I want to see that again as a donut chart, right? Maybe we want to look at that, maybe just looking at our top 10, right? So we can go in here to our customer filter, basic filtering, advanced filtering, a top 10. Basically, we can do a top maybe 10 based on, again, our sales amount, or we could do it based on something else if we wanted, and apply that, okay? So we can go and, see how these kind of interact. We can take these, go to the format. I can have different things to control. So if I select something from this chart, edit interactions, I want to filter this chart, and maybe vice versa, right? So if I select this chart, I want to filter this. So now if I select a specific period and year, it's going to give me my top 10 customers just for that specific data endpoint, or vice versa. If we look at maybe just Newegg, I can see just Newegg's trend. So this is where really quickly you can start getting some very meaningful visualization of the data. Yeah, it's that same spreadsheet of data, but now we can make sense of it and find something much quicker and easier. So if you then say, okay, I love what I see. Now I don't want to create a manual process for my analytic strategy of getting spreadsheets and then loading spreadsheets into a modern BI tool. We can go in and, in this case, instead of choosing Get Data and choosing a spreadsheet, I'm going to choose Get Data, and I'm going to go right to, let's say, SQL Server. So this would be like, if you say, okay, let's connect it to JD Edwards, right? And if I go and say, okay, SQL Demo, and import, so now I can pick my database, right? So JD Edwards, if I go back and look at maybe just let's say I know I want the F4111 or 4211, let's say pull sales just to be consistent, right? So I can go in here and pick, well, I want that. I also want my historical data. Maybe I want my 4102, right? And I want my 4101 for my item. So if you know what all these tables are that you need, right, you can kind of start bringing them in and, right, so I grab them and say, okay, perfect, this is going to be awesome. Okay, so you bring all these tables, and it's going to load them in, and you can see here, so if you have rights, not everybody's going to have rights to the data, but this is where you get forced to all those challenges. So when I look at this data, as it comes into the model, give it a second here to load. Okay. So now it's doing is, okay, here's all that data that you wanted, right? But I don't want the 4211 and 4211 separate. I want those together. So how do I merge that data together, right? When I open up one of those, though, I still have all these cryptic column names and aliases that I got to figure out how to cleanse. My dates, my decimals, my names, my joins. I mean, so if I go over here to all these tables, I need to relate them together, right? So I've got, okay, all these tables, I've got these, fact table. So, when I join to the item branch table, I got to figure, okay, how do I join that? A lot of the modern BI tools let you join on one key, one field. So you got to work the data to be able to create these unique relationships that just in the native JD doesn't work that way, right? So this is where people kind of get snagged up, and then you can go in here, you can rename things if you really want to go and say, okay, this is I can double sales history. You can change, table names, field names. You can kind of work with all the data, but this is not really what we find being the best way to kind of get started. So we do get a lot of customers that have kind of started down this route, spent months of effort, and concluded we haven't really made much progress at all. And that's when they find us, and typically we kind of help them down the path. I know I've got a couple minutes left, so I want to show one more thing on that, which would be, again, if we were starting from scratch, and even us, let's say, we've been looking at sales, but since we've already kind of analyzed the sales a little bit, let's say I wanted to real quickly on the fly build and open purchase orders by supplier, right? So I can go in here and choose get data. And if I choose get data and we choose maybe instead of grabbing the database and grabbing the tables, I can grab analysis services and put in the same server. Now we've got our model. So for instance, as a user, I can say, okay, I want to build a sales report. I want to build a purchasing report. I want to build inventory. I want to build job costs, right? So you can still have secured rights to certain things, but if I want to grid, what's my open POs, I can just grab this purchase order detail, select it, and choose OK. And we do have a sample for each one of these. So that's where we show you the sales sample, Power BI. We have one of those. But as a starting point, you could still go right at the data, and I don't have to think about how this stuff relates, right? If we open up here our purchase order amount, we got all the different fields around that. We've got, what's cost, open, what's ordered, what are my, the quantities. So if I want to look at just my open amount, just drag that in. And we want to see open amount maybe by supplier. So we come down here to our supplier name. And again, 2 clicks. Now we've got open amounts by supplier. Maybe I want to drill down from that down to maybe the items. So we go back here to our purchase order detail. We've got something like, here's our item account and description. If you mouse over that, we said, okay, when we have a long item number, then use that. Otherwise, use the account number, right? So just kind of always give you something. When we drill, select this, drag it in, and now as a user, I can say, okay, what are these open items here within parts important? I can drill down on that. Okay, and then it takes me down to the item. So this is where the idea of this data model where, again, I mentioned customers have told us, we just undersell what that is. And the point of that is that, again, we're pulling in all these different elements you have from JD Edwards, and you can bring in other data. So we have a lot of times customers, we help them get this data model, not just on JDE, but expanded to all these other things. So anything you need to slice and dice the data by, the model has it. So now it's just a user just grabbing it and dragging it in. If you build it from scratch, a lot of times you only build exactly what you know for one report or what you need for one report, and you lose that idea that, okay, I'm building a framework. And that's really what a good data model does, is provide you that framework. Last thing to show, and I'm going to turn it back over for questions, is we like to show Excel a little bit because there's always some people that this is another thing about, it's a big leap sometimes for someone to go from their traditional report, exporting to Excel, or doing pivot tables in Excel to say, okay, now I've got to see all this data visually. That's a stretch. So now as a user, we can go in and there's a Power BI plugin. We connect to Power BI data sets published to the cloud, or we can even connect here if you're just doing everything on premise to the same model we just did. So now we can pick on, let's say, let's do a real quick, like as of aging report. So if I grab, let's say, accounts receivable and choose finish, right, we can actually build a pivot table against that model. So that all that data, we might have 50 million records of data in our accounts receivable tables in JD Edwards. That's now sitting in memory in the model, but we can still build pivot tables against that because it's aggregating on the fly, and the spreadsheet's only going to be kilobytes in size. So if I go up here and grab, let's say, an as of aging amount by GL date, net due date, just grab it by GL date, right? Maybe we want to go down here to our aging band, or maybe let's start with customer. So I'll mean customer, and just doing a customer name as our rows, right? We can go to our aging band here as our columns. Right now, this is everything's over 150. Let's go back in time. So if we go to our calendar aging and say, okay, let's go pick a period historically. So I'll add that as a slicer. So now a user could go in and we could go ahead and pick, let's say, 2017 period 6, right? So I picked that. To recalculate the aging back then, we can add maybe the different document numbers. So within these, or we can go ahead and just pick any one of these, double click on it. It'll give us all the transaction detail that's there. So Excel, this is a nice way, and a lot of our customers in finance love this ability because it's just, it helps automate something they're doing manually today, gives them that comfort, and then it also helps them understand what's in the data model and how to use that. So when they get to Power BI and seeing that data more visually, it's not as big of a leap. So that's another consideration. And as we pass over the last two slides that we have, really is this kind of future productivity suite. You know, if you're a Microsoft shop in any way, right, you might be using a variety of different tools, not just Office, you know, things like Skype and Teams and so on. But we really kind of look at this as being part of your productivity suite. We think that when people say BI within the next few years, they're actually assuming that you are talking about Power BI, because it's so you know, now becoming part of so many companies. Almost like, I think everybody on this call, there's someone in your organization that's likely downloaded Power BI and tinkered with it. And then back to just how, you know, to tread down this path, you know, whether or not you already got something built, you've got a data warehouse, or you're looking at what's the backend strategy. Regardless of what you choose on how you're going to get the data, you have to basically turn the data into a more business-friendly format. Our views, our ODS, our data warehouse, really look at that only getting us about 40% of the way. The data model, where you then put the data together already in an organized format with the KPIs, the measures, the governance, that's what allows you to get the end user adoption. So I can't stress enough how much having a good data model, we feel like with that on top of the back end, gets you 75% of the way down the path. And then, you know, you can, once you have a good framework and model, people can build reports in minutes. It really is that simple. The difficulty is when you go, okay, got to build a report from scratch when you don't have a good framework and data model. And so that's kind of where our thoughts. So Brooke, I'll pass it back to you if there's any questions.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Let me know when you can see my screen. Can you see that okay?
Yes, I do. Yes.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. All right, well, thank you so much, Adam, for your great presentation. It was awesome. I just want to cover a few follow-up items before we get into our question and answer section. As a part of our, today's webcast is a part of our free ongoing educational webcast series on JD Edwards, and our our upcoming webcasts are currently listed on the screen. And like I said earlier, we are adding more every day, so feel free to go out to getgsi.com/JD Edwards webcast to view our most up-to-date schedule. And we also do have an orchestrator workshop coming up in Houston on October 1st, and we actually have one that's happening today, and that was in Orlando, Florida. And then we also have a 9.2 upgrade workshop in Dallas, Texas on October 3rd. We also have a problem-solving collaboration site, which is called erptalk.com, where you can get your JD Edwards and other enterprise application questions answered. Also, be sure to stay connected with us on social media. All of our social media handles are currently listed on the screen. You can see our most up-to-date posts, webcasts, events, industry insights, and so much more. And GSI provides extensive free educational resources for the JD Edwards community, including our weekly educational webcasts, our monthly newsletter called the GSI Insider, and our online resource center where you can access our on-demand webcasts, white papers, and so much more. And we offer on-site and virtual workshops. And if you'd like to sign up for any of our weekly email reminders or upcoming webcasts, or our monthly newsletter, or to create an account to access our resource center, you can go to getgsi.com, resources and events on the main page, and then select JD Edwards. All right, well, I do see that we have a few questions submitted, and I just would like to remind you that if you would still like to submit a question, you can do so using the questions panel in the GoToWebinar console window located on the right side of your screen. And if you minimized your console earlier, please click the left arrow key to redisplay the questions panel. All right, Adam, are you ready? We got lots of questions for you.
All right, let's do it.
All right, so our first question here comes from Fabrizio, and he says, do you have this solution in Portuguese?
I wish the answer was yes. Unfortunately, no. The solution is in English. Based on the data model, there are, with the Microsoft modeling technologies, some translation layers that you can apply, but nothing that we deliver out of box. It's the delivered solution is in English.
Okay. Are there plans to do in other languages?
Not on the current roadmap. Yeah, it's not there currently. But you still, I think, like I said, it could be something that could be explored with some of those translators. We can maybe take that offline.
Okay, awesome. And he has one more question saying, what happens with the custom tables?
Good question. I didn't bring that up in the session. Yeah, so absolutely, I would say 90% of the time, new customers need to get custom tables. If it's using a custom table in a replacement of one of the existing tables, like let's say you've got a F55 4102 for your item branch that has extra columns in it that you might need for certain purposes, we can swap out our item branch, or if sometimes it's a new custom table that needs to be added. And so it's just a matter of understanding how it needs to be integrated with everything else. But like I said, that becomes our norm, is actually helping customers get a custom table. So the technologies definitely support that, and so does QuickLaunch.
Awesome, thank you. Our next question here is from Amanda, and she says, do you have a trial environment?
Good question. So we do. On our website, if you just go to preferredstrategy.com, and there's I think at the very top of the screen, you see a free trial. You can go ahead and sign up for that, and what that'll do is give you a few interactive dashboards that you can view online, and then will be informed to set up your trial environment, where it'll be a full-fledged Power BI site dedicated to you with all of our sample content and model for you to access. We just need to clarify what modules are of interest to put out there. But yeah, so that thank you. I should have mentioned that. My bad. But yes, awesome. Please go to Preferred Strategies and get a free trial top of the screen.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And then we have our last question here from Sharon, and she says, what versions of JDE do you support?
Yeah, so I'd almost put it as there's really not a version of JD Edwards I'm aware that we don't support. We have customers on all versions that are still running on World and E1. So we support all three database types, but really our code base is all updated to the most recent updates of 9.2. There's a few modules, things like accounts receivable, where there's some underlying tables that are dramatically different between World and Enterprise 1. But other than that, we have the same code base that we implement everywhere. So we have all the cat codes. So if you're actually running an older version of JD Edwards that doesn't have, for instance, 50 category codes on the business unit, we basically just have those hidden. So when you upgrade to 9.2, then you basically just expose those. So our code base is all the way up to 9.2, but we go back as far as JD Edwards is actually running anywhere today.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Adam. That appears to be the end of our questions today. Thank you so much, Adam, for your great presentation today, and everybody for attending and your questions. As a follow-up from today's webcast, we ask that you complete a short 1-minute survey when you exit, and you will be receiving an email with a link to our resource center on our website, where you can access the recording from today's webcast, as well as a copy of the presentation. And after today's webcast, we will do the drawing for the $25 Amazon gift card, and anyone that attended the entire webcast will be eligible, and we will notify the winner. And if you do have any follow-up questions, feel free to reach out to Adam or myself, and our contact info is currently listed on the screen. And we have one more comment here really quick, Adam, and he said, Ebenezer said, great presentation, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you again, Brooke, too, for inviting us.
Oh, yes, thank you guys so much. And thank you, everybody, for attending, and we hope that you have a great day.